I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
After spending some time with the Man of Steel, it's time to see what the rest of the Kal-El family tree looks like. Today on DC Revisited, we're going over the first DC spin-off with Supergirl. The idea of bringing the Supergirl character into the Christopher Reeve Superman franchise has been around since Richard Donner's involvement. While the idea had spanned from a cameo role in a Superman film to an origin story, and finally a team-up between the two familial characters, her inclusion has always been present. So with Christopher Reeve unhappy with the direction of his character, and producers wanting to expand the super business, they got to work on bringing the story of Kara Zor-El to life. The Salkinds had been hoping to persuade Superman 2 and 3 director Richard Lester to take on directing duties. That way the film would have a bit of a stylistic continuity with Reeve's franchise. Unfortunately, Lester was wanting to move on from the Superman character and focus on more whimsical comedy. He would go on to direct Finders Keepers and The Return of the Musketeers, before retiring from the industry in 1991. Wanting someone that had a good grasp on the sci-fi element, the producers went to Robert Wise, who had directed Star Trek the Motion Picture. Wise, however, was winding down his career and didn't have any interest in the project. At the suggestion of Christopher Reeve, producers met with Jeannot Szwarc, who had directed Reeve in the film Somewhere in Time. While that style of production was almost the antithesis of a superhero film, Jeannot was given his job due to his action work on Jaws 2. Knowing the enormous task at hand, Jeannot made sure to contact original director Richard Donner for technical advice. When you see the film, it's hard not to wonder just how much of Donner's advice he ended up taking. It couldn't have been much.
Thanks for watching DC Films Revisited. If you enjoy our shows, please subscribe to our channel right now. Like this video and click on the bell so you can be notified each time a new video comes up. Now, back to the show.
You may be asking yourself, but how can Superman have a cousin that's still around when all of his people died during the massive explosion on Krypton? And apparently the answer is that a colony of people were blown away into an area known as the Survival Zone, because the I want to live zone was apparently too on the nose. Either way, by introducing this group of people, Superman's history gets very complicated. And that's not even getting into what would come later with Brandon Routh's Superman and his journey to Krypton. But that's a story for another time. The Salkinds were tasked with finding a writer that could bring their vision to life. As they often did, the producers went after a writer with recent success. Having seen The Dark Crystal and loving his fantastical style, David Odell was brought in for the screenplay. While he used the original work of Otto Binder and Al Plastino, the creators of the Supergirl character, as inspiration, he mostly focused on an original tale of Supergirl visiting Earth in order to save her own people from disaster. All across Hollywood, the lead of Supergirl and her alter ego, Kara, was heavily vied after. Actors saw what the Superman role did for Christopher Reeve's career and wanted the same. So the who's who of popular actresses auditioned for the role. Demi Moore and Brooke Shields were turned down by producers, although Moore was offered and accepted the role of Lucy Lane, which she later dropped out of. Wanting to recreate the same magic that they had gotten from casting Christopher Reeve, producers zeroed in on an unknown by the name of Helen Slater. Slater had appeared on the soap opera Another World, as well as an ABC after-school special. It was perfect, but even with a lead cast, what on earth would the story be about? Ever heard of an Omegahedron? Of course not, why would you have? Well, it's the all-powerful item that completely runs Supergirl's world, Argo City. It is so vital that without it, the entire city would die in days. Sounds like it's something that should not, under any circumstances, be messed with. I think you know where I'm going with this. The Omegahedron is lost, Kara blames herself, and goes on a journey to get it back. And wouldn't you know, the Omegahedron has landed on little ol' Earth. So Kara goes on an adventure to take back the powerful Omegahedron. Seriously, say it for yourself, it is such a fun word. Unfortunately, the item ends up in the hands of a powerful witch, Selena. You can probably guess all the story beats from here on out, but that's okay. It's not trying to reinvent the wheel. But we do get a pretty interesting set piece featuring the Phantom Zone. If you'll remember, the Phantom Zone is where General Zod, Ursa, and Nan were imprisoned by Jor-El. Here we actually get a peek inside, and while it's very dated, it is a cool look at the Kryptonian prison system. Kara breaks out, saves the day, and traps Selena in the Phantom Zone. With the Omegahedron back in her possession, she returns to Argo City to save her people. The original Superman featured the work of prestigious actor Marlon Brando as Superman's father, Zor-El. Wanting to recreate this, other major actors were looked at for the minor roles in the beginning. Peter O'Toole was cast as Zoltar, who is supposedly a genius, yet we only ever see him behaving like a complete moron. Then there's Mia Farrow, playing Kara's mother Allura. While her role is very brief, she avoids making a complete fool of herself, which makes this Rosemary's Baby fan very happy. The love interest here, Ethan, played by Hart Bochner, is pretty random in that he doesn't come from any comics and he's mostly just a maintenance man. And I don't know about anyone else, but I have a hard time seeing him as any sort of affable love interest when all I know him as is Sleazy Ellis from Die Hard.
John.
Mark McClure would be the only Superman cast member to make his way over to the spin-off. His character is pretty inconsequential and often just feels like the glue they're using to prove that this film exists in the same world. And if you were looking forward to Christopher Reeve's appearance in the film, then here you go. That's right, his only appearance is on the wall of a girl's dormitory. While producers had hoped to bring Reeve into the movie in at least a cameo, Reeve could see the writing on the wall in regards to the quality. And after his experience on Superman 3, there was no way he was suiting up for the role again. You may have noticed another actress in this scene was Slater. This is Maureen Teefy, and she plays Lucy Lane, the little sister of Lois Lane. And that's really the theme of the movie: coincidence. Kara just happens to be rooming with Lois Lane's sister, who also happens to be dating Jimmy Olsen. Oh, and Supergirl doesn't go by Kara in this. Instead, her alter ego goes by Linda Lee, despite her name being Kara, because they really just wanted to make this as confusing as possible. If you were thinking that the one thing missing from this super world was witches and wizards, then I've got some good news for you. Faye Dunaway stars as Selena, a witch who wants out from under the shadow of her master, played by Peter Cook. Every scene that these two inhabit consists of massive scenery-chewing goodness.
What the devil do you want?
And that's not even getting to the best part. Brenda Vaccaro as Bianca. It's clear that the writer is trying to recreate the chemistry between Hackman and Beatty from the original, but it doesn't really work here. Dunaway and Vaccaro come across more like lesbian aunts than formidable super foes.
No! No!
But boy, is their bickering entertaining.
And destroy her wherever she are.
Oh, God, that's awful.
These are some of the sole bright spots in the movie. The effects work here is pretty rough. With the same team that works on Reeve's Superman, it's amazing how many mistakes are made here. You often see the wires that hold Slater in the air, and the camera movement feels very uninspired. But the biggest issue seems to be with Helen Slater herself. While we've discussed how much Reeve immersed himself in the role and really nailed the language of flight, Slater appears to have done the opposite. Which, when you hear from Slater about the experience, just kind of adds to the confusion.
Alf Joint, who trained me for Supergirl, that was Chris's same guy. All the people where I learned how to fly, those were all the same people that had worked with Chris and on the Superman movies. So there were a lot of similar crossover.
Yeah, you can't really tell by the results. The production around Superman has never been simple. So why would Supergirl be any different? The main problem came from Warner Brothers. For the first 3 films, the Salkinds put up the money for the production, and then Warner Brothers distributed it. Warner rarely had any creative input because the positive results were in the box office. However, after the failure of Superman 3, and Warner saw their profits dwindling, they took a much more hands-on approach here, and it really shows. The entire production was monitored by Warner, so decisions that were made on set were more for budget and profit than for creative fulfillment. A recipe for disaster.
Do you bleed?
Their performances in the film were so bad that the Golden Raspberries, the premier Bad Movie Award show, nominated both Dunaway and O'Toole for their roles. Quite the far cry from their Oscar days. Oddly enough, Slater was actually nominated for a Saturn Award for Best Actress. So clearly it wasn't all terrible. We've talked about a lot of the bad here, but let's get into some of the good.
Oh no, not now.
The score for the film is one of the few bright spots as it was composed by Jerry Goldsmith. You may recognize his name from his work on the Star Trek films, Alien, Gremlins, and even the studio logo for Universal Pictures. He had actually been Richard Donner's original choice for composer on the first film, but his schedule conflicted. The score is both heroic and of the times, while still paying homage to John Williams' work that came before it. In the summer of 1984, the film was ready to be released upon the world. But the Salkinds and Warner disagreed about the release strategy. The Salkinds didn't want to release the film in the summer, having to also compete with the Summer Olympics, and Warner didn't want it released during the holiday season. Despite micromanaging the production, Warner sold the distribution rights back to the Salkinds, who sold the film to TriStar Pictures. After poor test screenings, TriStar cut the film from 135 minutes down to 105 minutes. Hoping to make the film more accessible. Supergirl opened in the United Kingdom on July 17, 1984, and later in the United States on November 24th. This staggered release schedule followed similar patterns to the past Superman films. However, it didn't result in quite the success. While the film was number 1 at the box office during its opening weekend, the final tally was disappointing, bringing in just $14 million worldwide. Compared to the $100 million plus grosses of the first 2 Superman films, Supergirl was a massive disappointment. And that's not even getting into the reviews. This movie was absolutely demolished by critics and audiences. No one seemed to like it. And I think Roger Ebert really summed up the reason why. We do not go to Superman and Supergirl movies to laugh condescendingly at the characters, which is what the writers, directors, and even some of the actors have started to do. We go to recapture some of the lost innocence of the whole notion of superheroes. And the only thing that Supergirl captured was how not to make a superhero movie. Yikes. While the Superman films received much loved television versions, Supergirl didn't get as much praise. While there was an international version which was said to add more characterization to both Dunaway and Slater, the quality of the film is mostly unchanged. The major excision is a scene where Kara discovers all of her superpowers when she first arrives on Earth. It's a fun moment that also serves to tell the audience how she warmed up to these powers so quickly, because the version we're presented shows no learning from Kara. She just automatically knows how to use her powers. which causes a bit of a disconnect with the viewer. Remember physical distribution company Anchor Bay Entertainment? They would grow to be known as the premier place for independent horror DVD distribution in the 2000s. But the first film they ever helped to distribute was actually Supergirl. Rights holder Studio Canal commissioned Anchor Bay for the project, and it was the only way to see the film for many years. However, once Bryan Singer had started work on Superman Returns, Warner Brothers decided to reacquire the rights. All subsequent releases have been done by the WB, but it's yet to be included in any Christopher Reeve box set, despite still being considered canon. The Supergirl character has seen quite the amount of success over the last decade. Melissa Benoist starred as the titular character in CW's Supergirl TV show, which just recently wrapped up its popular 6-season run. Sasha Calle was cast in the role for the new Flash movie, and is expected to lead a full-fledged film of her own in 2023. Needless to say, the character has been doing pretty well for herself. Helen Slater did what most of the Supercast has done, and appeared in a small cameo role as Zor-El on Smallville. Much later, she appeared in a more high-profile role as Kara Danvers' adoptive mother, Eliza Danvers, in the Supergirl TV show. Outside of Mark McClure, who we've already talked about in other videos, no one else in the cast has returned to the DC side of things. It's almost like they're ashamed or something.
Zip, zap, and I'm gone.
While this film was only a spin-off, its failure ultimately affected the trajectory of Christopher Reeve's Superman series in a big way. Longtime producers Ilya and Alexander Salkinds decided to sell their rights to the franchise to the Cannon Group and left the Superman series behind them. They would go on to produce Santa Claus the Movie, but would never again see the success that they had with the Superman franchise. They eventually returned to the series, producing the television show Superboy for CBS. With Slater's Supergirl failing to take off and Christopher Reeve vowing to never play Superman again, the future of the franchise was up in the air. Thankfully, an infamous production company took the reins and made movie history. But that's a story for next time. Join us in the next video. Same movie time, same movie channel.